So when you decided in your first journalistic adventure was to go and move to a refugee camp in Palestine in the West Bank, why did you choose that particular place? Did you know anybody there? I mean, what was the thinking for picking
Um,
that place?
yeah, Ida Refugee Camp is kind of a special place in the sense that it's one that's relatively easy to access for foreigners. You can go there, you can meet people. They're very warm. There's often a kind of a sort of a not always rotating, but there are often a few foreigners who come there, Palestine solidarity activists, journalists, young journalists who are really trying to get their feet wet, and you can go live there and you just get this experience of the occupation in a very up close and personal way on a daily basis. I mean, it's right up next to an Israeli military base. Um,
Hmm.
at Rachel's tomb, at this holy site, Rachel's tomb, which is surrounded by an Israeli military base. And on a daily basis, the gate from the refugee camp opens. Soldiers will just, come out and shoot tear gas, shoot people. They've killed kids. They'll shoot rubber coated bullets. And so you just, yeah, I mean, there's just no way to escape it. It's like you're living in like a cage where these people are treated like rats, and they're just it was a very radicalizing experience for me, just seeing what this actually meant, and they've been living there for decades and decades and decades. So yeah, I mean, it's an accessible place, but that's what I needed.
So you chose this camp. Did you know anybody when you went?
I had met some sort of aspiring journalists, solidarity activists who ended up getting me a room. So I stayed with like the foreigners in a house in like sort of like an apartment
Mhm.
that one of the families rented out.
Hmm. When you were there, as a Jewish American, how did the soldiers treat you? How did the Israeli soldier? A lot of them are Americans. Did you run into American IDF soldiers, and what
Oh
was their
yeah.
response to you?
There was one time. I mean, usually they don't know. I'm just some guy. They can't tell. Um, there was one time that I was in the village of Nabi Saleh, which is known for its resistance. It's where Ahed Tamimi, remember her? She went, she became very famous some years ago. For she's like a young, now she's a young woman. She was like maybe 16 or 17 at the time, maybe even younger, where she slapped a soldier who was in her village. I mean, her family has been completely terrorized, killed by the Israeli army. And Nabi Saleh was like a place of weekly demonstrations. Every Friday, they would demonstrate and go confront the army and this kind of thing. Um, I went there, and one time the border police are basically they can stop you and arrest you. The army can't quite as much as a foreigner. The border police stopped me, or a bunch of border police and soldiers. They stopped me and a few other people, two Palestinians, myself, one other journalist, and an American journalist. And they take your ID and everything. And I had this hat, this protective hat. It was made of hard plastic. It just looked like a regular hat, but the cap was made of hard plastic, because they shoot rubber coated bullets, and that would protect me at least from that. So I'd wear that in the field. And they took my ID, and these soldiers, are all 19 years old. I'm about 10 years older than them. They take my ID and they see it, and they're just like shocked, and they're you could just see they were like glaring at me like, you traitor. So I mean, the only
Hmm.
thing that Zionists hate more than Palestinians are anti-Zionist Jews, because they see them as like race traitors. Like, you're an enemy from within. How dare you? It's
Hmm.
even more disgusting. So, um, but overall, I didn't get a lot of that. When I remember when I'd go into the Gaza Strip, you have to go. Of course, Israel controls the entrance and exit, and so when I would go in, I remember people would the Israelis who like control it would who look at my passport and my visa and my press card. They would look at me kind of like I'm crazy. I remember a young Ethiopian woman, Ethiopian Israeli, looking at me and just being like, "Are you scared?" And I was like, no, are you scared? And she just, you know, was kind of blown out by the whole thing. But, I mean, I never had any problems because I'm Jewish. I mean, not that I advertised it. And certainly, like, if I went around, wearing a kippah, that could be a different thing, a yarmulke,
Yeah.
that could be a different thing. Because the thing is, for Palestinians, their their occupier calls themselves the Jewish state. When those tanks roll in, there's a Star of David on it. When there's, Israeli warplanes are dropping bombs on them and massacring them, they're saying, we're doing this in the name of Jews. So you
Hmm.
have to expect that not everyone is going to be like, no, 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 this is not Jews. Like there's gonna be a reactionary element of that, and that's not to say that's not anti-Semitism in the sense of like European, old school anti-Semitism, where they really like have all these horrible beliefs about Jews. That's just a reaction to occupation. So,
Hmm.
so I didn't. It's not like I advertised it, but I mean, among people who knew, never had a problem. In Gaza, Hamas knew. You think Hamas didn't know I was Jewish? Of course they did. In fact, they gave me extra protection because I'm Jewish, because they knew, well, there's people who might not quite understand. Um, One time in Gaza, I don't know if I've ever told this story publicly. One time in Gaza, I went with a friend to the rubble of this neighborhood east of Gaza called Shujaiya, which now is getting hit so hard in this current war on Gaza, and it did in 2014 too. And I'm just talking to these salt of the earth people, and it's just it's an amazing experience. They're just so real. And I asked my friend, I'm like, do you think we should tell them I'm Jewish? Like, I just want these people to know the truth about me. And he was like, okay. And so we told them, and they were like, oh, especially the father, because he worked in Israel for years and years and years. He's like, oh, I have Jewish friends, blah, blah, blah. He's going off. And then a couple days later, I actually got called into Hamas's security office. And they were like, you cannot tell people that. Do not do that, because you're going to get yourself in a bad situation, because you never know how people are going to react. They might
Hmm.
not differentiate. So Hamas protected me as a Jew.
I do want to tell you about Field of Greens. You guys know that I love this stuff. It is a fine powder made from dehydrated whole fruits and vegetables, and they carefully select exactly which fruits and which vegetables to put in the mix so that you get the most nutrients in the diet that you're supposed to, you're supposed to be getting all your fruits and vegetables. But I know it's really, really difficult to do, and especially when you don't have to and you'd rather eat chips and cookies and all these other things, it's tough. I get it. So Field of Greens is a great way to get all your fruits and veggies into your diet. You will feel better when you drink this. Your skin will thank you. Your hair will thank you. You'll sleep better. Your cholesterol will thank you. Everything will be better when you're getting all these nutrients in your diet. So get Field of Greens by going to fieldofgreens.com. Use the promo code Kim and get 15% off. I do recommend the lemon lime flavor. I think that tastes the best. It tastes like iced green tea mixed with lemon. Again, fieldofgreens.com. Use that promo code Kim to get 15% off your first order.